Everyone mocked him because he was just a poor cleaner, but what they didn't know was, he owned the entire company. And the only woman who treated him with kindness? She had no idea he was about to change her life forever.
Welcome to our channel, Story Lovers. We love having you here. Before we continue with this intriguing story, please subscribe and turn on notification bell so you can get notified whenever we drop new stories. Now enjoy.
Michael Girogi sat behind tinted glass in the back of a black SUV that glided past Marina's heavy traffic like it didn't belong to the same world. People rushed past, their faces tired and determined. His own face, though hidden behind expensive sunglasses, looked out of place. Too calm, too polished, too distant. He adjusted his collar, more out of habit than discomfort. He didn't feel the heat anymore. Not the Lagos heat. Not the heat from the mess he had just walked away from. Just a few hours ago, he had walked in on Tara, his fiancée, entangled in a kiss with another man. But that was not what hurt the most. What cut deeper was what she said when she saw him. "Oh, please, Michael, stop looking like a wounded puppy. You think people love you? They love what you have. Without your money, who are you really?" She had laughed as if she was talking to a stranger. And maybe she was. Maybe everyone had always been in love with his account balance. His cars. His status. Not him. Not Michael, the boy who once sold chin-chin in secondary school because his widowed mother couldn't afford school fees. The car slowed in front of a tall building. Nothing fancy, just another office block for one of his companies. But this was the place. He had chosen it himself, randomly, without influence. It housed a range of small companies, law firms, delivery startups, online vendors, and one underpaid receptionist who didn't know her smile was about to change everything. Michael stepped out, not as a billionaire, but as a man on a mission. He wore second-hand trousers and a plain shirt tucked into dusty canvas shoes. His beard was unshaved, and his wrist, once decorated with a watch that cost more than some people's salaries, was bare. No one would recognize him. That was the plan. He had arranged the job himself, using a fake name, Michael, no surname. The building manager didn't ask too many questions. Cleaners were always coming and going. No one paid attention. That's what he needed, to disappear, to see the world from the other side. Maybe even find something real. The first week was hard. Sweeping staircases, cleaning toilets, carrying water buckets up 3 floors. His back ached in ways he hadn't felt in years. The smell of disinfectant followed him everywhere. Nobody looked him in the eye. Except her. Anita. He first noticed her because of the way she greeted the security guards by name. Not in that fake, mechanical way people did when they wanted to sound nice. No. She said good morning, Musa, like she meant it. She brought food sometimes, mostly rice neatly wrapped, and shared with anyone who looked hungry, even if she only had 1 spoon. She worked at the front desk of a digital marketing company on the 2nd floor. Her table was always neatly arranged, and her hair was always in a new style every week, though clearly done at home. She laughed easily, but there was a sadness in her eyes that came and went like Harmattan breeze, quiet, cold, and honest. He learned her name without asking. He overheard it when her boss shouted it across the hallway one afternoon. "Anita, who touched this printer again?" Her calm voice responded from inside. "It was the new intern, sir." He remembered thinking her voice sounded like something you wanted to hear again. She noticed him one day when he was mopping the floor beside her office. "You're new, right?" she asked, squinting up at him from her desk. He nodded. "You clean like you were trained by your mother." "Neat work," she added, smiling. He didn't know what to say. He just nodded again and bent his head, but inside him, something moved. Not butterflies. Not lightning. Just something he hadn't felt in a long time. Warmth. After that day, she always greeted him. "Good morning, Michael." He began to wait for her greetings like a schoolboy waiting for break time. She didn't treat him like furniture. She laughed with him sometimes. She asked him questions. She shared her biscuit when he forgot his lunch. Once, when rain beat him after work and soaked his only shirt, she offered to hang it at the back of the office air conditioner. No shame in being wet. Lagos rain doesn't care who you are, she had said, laughing. If only she knew who he really was. But that was the point. He didn't want her to know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She gives without expecting anything. But there was something else. She didn't talk much about her life, but he noticed things. Like how her phone screen was cracked, but she never complained. How she wore the same 3 shoes every week, alternating them with care. How her eyes stayed longer on adverts for job openings posted on the notice board. And then one evening, he saw her sitting alone behind the building, holding a paper that looked like a hospital bill. Her face was still, but her hand trembled. He wanted to ask if she was okay, but he didn't. Not yet. He was still a cleaner. And she was still a mystery. But one thing was becoming clear. This woman was not just kind. She was rare. And Michael, billionaire or not, was falling. Quietly. Deeply. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time in his life, it was real. One Monday afternoon, as he mopped the floor near her office, she waved him over. "Come and eat before I change my mind, oh," she teased, opening a small cooler box. He hesitated. She patted the chair next to her. "Cleaner or not, everybody needs food." That was the first day he tasted her cooking, soft jollof rice with fried plantain. Simple, but rich. After that, they started eating together now and then. Sometimes on the bench outside, sometimes in the corner of the office lobby. The meals were always shared, no matter how small. They started walking part of the way home together when they closed late. Her slippers slapped the wet pavement. His worn shoes made no sound, but their voices filled the space between them. "You know, I wanted to be a writer once," she said one evening. "But dreams cost money, and right now I can't even afford electricity." He chuckled. "Maybe one day, someone will publish your story." She looked at him. "Do you have a dream?" He paused. "Yes. But it feels far away." That was the night she touched his arm briefly. Just a soft pat. No romance. Just comfort. It stayed with him long after she was gone. But even soft things have shadows. Kelvin, Anita's ex-boyfriend, returned like thunder on a sunny day. He drove a new car every time. His shirts were loud. His perfume filled the building minutes before he walked in. And he always came with a bouquet and an apology. "I still love you, Anita. You belong beside me, not behind a dusty desk." Michael watched from afar. He never interrupted. He had no right. He was just a cleaner. But he noticed the struggle in Anita's eyes. Her smile was tight when Kelvin spoke. Her words were careful. Her laughter was gone. Still, she resisted. Then one day, her younger brother collapsed. It happened at dawn. A seizure. By the time Anita got to the hospital, he was unconscious. The diagnosis, brain swelling. Surgery was needed. Urgently. And the cost was high. Too high. Michael saw her the next day, her eyes red, her voice flat. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, barely hearing herself. He wanted to help. God knows he did. But how would he explain where the money came from? Who would believe that Michael the cleaner could suddenly produce millions? That same day, Kelvin showed up again. This time, not with flowers, but with a check. No strings attached. He lied. "Just think about it." Her hands trembled as she held it. Michael watched from behind the staircase. His heart sank. That night, it rained. Lagos rain. Wild, angry, and fast. Michael had stayed late, too tired to walk home. The building's watchman had locked the back entrance. He curled up behind a generator shed, using a piece of nylon as cover. Cold water soaked through his clothes. He didn't mind. His chest already felt like it was drowning. Anita found him an hour later. Michael. She ran to him, kneeling beside his shivering body. Without thinking, she pulled him up. Come. You can't sleep here. You'll die. He followed her, weak, soaked, half asleep. Her tiny room was a few streets away, neatly arranged with a bed on the floor, and books neatly arranged on a shelf by the side. She gave him dry clothes. One of her brother's t-shirts. She made him hot pap and placed it in his hands. I don't have much, she said, but I hate seeing people suffer. He nodded, unable to speak. His teeth still chattered. She covered him with a clean wrapper and sat beside him on the bed. She didn't ask questions. She didn't judge. She just stayed. And for a long, silent moment, Michael forgot about his money, his heartbreak, and his lies. All he saw was her, barefoot, sincere, glowing in the dim light. He wanted to tell her everything. That his name wasn't Michael. That he owned 3 tech companies. That he had 5 cars parked in a mansion across town. That he could pay for her brother's surgery 10 times over. But he didn't. Because for the first time in his life, someone cared for him without knowing who he was. It had rained again that morning. The sky over Lagos was still gray when Anita tied her scarf and made her way to work. There was tension in the air, not the weather kind, but the kind that came when something important was about to happen. People at the office whispered, straightened their ties more than usual, cleaned their desks twice. Today, they said, the real Michael Girogi was coming. The CEO himself. The young billionaire. The tech genius whose face had never been seen in the building, only in glossy magazines and online articles. He was coming to inspect the company's new partnership. There would be media. There would be cameras. There would be madness. By 5 p.m., the office was still glowing with activity. Some staff pretended to be working. Others were fixing their makeup. Everyone wanted to catch a glimpse of greatness. Anita was at the front desk, her files in neat stacks, typing one last email. She hadn't seen Michael the cleaner all day. Her heart was tight in a way she didn't understand. Maybe he had fallen sick. Or maybe he was avoiding her. Since the night she brought him home, he had been quieter, more distant. She thought about how he looked in the rain. So vulnerable, yet proud. She remembered the way he looked at her sometimes, as if there were things he wanted to say but couldn't. She shook her head. Focus, Anita, she muttered to herself. Downstairs, Michael was standing in the corner of the VIP lobby. He wore his usual blue overalls, the uniform now a part of him. His hands were clean but dry, his face calm. Security men were setting up barricades. A red carpet had been laid. Bouquets lined the path like obedient soldiers. He shouldn't have been there. But he needed to see it for himself. He needed to know what she'd do, what she'd feel, when she saw him not as a cleaner, but as himself. Hey! Cleaner! The building manager barked. A short, stocky man with a loud voice and a face always wet with sweat. What are you doing here? This is VIP area. You people like to disgrace yourselves, N. Michael didn't move. The man stormed toward him. Are you deaf? Must you embarrass us today of all days? Security. 2 men in black shirts came running. Anita, hearing the noise from the front desk, turned sharply. She saw him, Michael, the man she had fed jollof rice, now being shoved like he was dirt. Wait, she said, standing up. But it was too late. One of the security guards grabbed his arm. Come on, out. Before you spoil the carpets. Michael looked at Anita. Their eyes met. And then, he was shoved out like dirt. Moments later, a sleek black car had pulled up. The driver rushed out, opened the back door, and out stepped a tall figure in a deep navy suit.
His shoes shone. His watch caught the light like a mirror.
His haircut was sharp, his jaw clean.
It was Michael. Not the cleaner. Not the quiet man who shared rice. But the real man behind the curtain. The billionaire. People gasped. Phones dropped.
One lady screamed faintly. Anita stood frozen. The manager's mouth hung open like a cupboard without hinges. The security guards stepped back as if they'd touched a ghost. Michael walked forward slowly. Each step on the red carpet sounded louder than drums. He stopped in the middle of the lobby, where the shouting had taken place. He looked around, then turned to the manager. "I am not just a cleaner," he said quietly, voice steady. "I am Michael Jiroji."
No one breathed. No one moved.
He turned to Anita, whose lips had parted, whose eyes were wide with something between confusion and disbelief.
"And everything I told you was true."
"Except my name." Whispers rippled through the staff like a wave.
Some clutched their chests.
Others reached for their phones, not to call anyone, but just to hold something solid. Anita slowly walked forward, eyes still locked on his.
"You," she whispered. He nodded.
Her mouth trembled, but she didn't speak. The manager began stuttering apologies, bowing like a child who had broken a plate. Michael didn't look at him.
His eyes remained on Anita.
And in those few seconds, everything stood still, like the city, the people, the world had paused for just the two of them.
Would she be angry?
Would she feel betrayed? Would she walk away?
He didn't know. He only knew that he had told the truth. Anita couldn't speak.
She stood there, her heart pounding, her thoughts a storm of confusion and hurt. The man who had shared laughter with her, the man who had walked her home, the man who had sat with her in the dark over bowls of jollof rice, had been hiding who he really was. All along, he was Michael Jiroji, the very man everyone talked about in hushed tones, the billionaire with so much power, money, and influence.
And he had lied to her.
She felt it all at once, the sting of betrayal, the sharp pain of humiliation. All the little moments they had shared, the kindness he had shown, the way he had made her feel seen. It all seemed like a joke now. A game he played on her, and she had been the punchline. With trembling hands, she took a step back. Then another. And another. Until she was almost at the door. Michael reached out as if to stop her, his voice soft, pleading. "Anita, please.
Wait.
I wanted to tell you.
But she couldn't hear him. Not anymore. She couldn't bear it. Not after everything.
She walked out, leaving him standing there with all his wealth, all his pretenses, and none of the person she thought she knew. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding, cutting him off from her completely. The media frenzy was swift. News outlets, blogs, and social media platforms exploded with the revelation. The cleaner who was a billionaire. The headline was everywhere. Every reporter and journalist in Lagos wanted to know the story. How had Michael Jiroji, one of the richest men in Nigeria, spent months pretending to be a lowly cleaner? What was his real motive? What did he expect to gain? But it was Anita who became the new target. They wanted to hear from her. They wanted to know how she felt. Had she been in love with the cleaner or the billionaire? Was she angry? Did she feel duped? The cameras, the questions, the pressure, it all felt suffocating. She didn't answer their calls. She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to hear from anyone, least of all Michael. But her ex, Kelvin, wasn't about to let her retreat quietly. "Look at you," Kelvin sneered when he appeared at her apartment one afternoon. "You had the chance to marry a billionaire, and you chose a cleaner." Anita, standing in the kitchen, ignored him. She was trying to focus on her brother's medication, but the words came anyway. "You don't understand anything," she said quietly. "Oh, I understand plenty. A cleaner who has more time to play the fool for you than I ever did. You're really something, Anita.
You think you can walk away from the good life?
You're lucky I'm even here to help you after you embarrassed yourself. Kelvin's voice dripped with mockery, and Anita's eyes stung with tears she refused to shed. Leave, she said, her voice firm. Just leave, Kelvin.
He scoffed. You'll come crawling back soon enough. I can see it in your eyes.
You won't want to stay poor forever. Anita didn't say another word. She turned away, walking out of the room, and Kelvin followed her. He was relentless, but she didn't care anymore. The only thing that mattered was her brother, his surgery, and the mounting pressure to fix things she had no control over. A few days later, she received a call from her landlord, informing her that the rent had been fully paid. When she checked her brother's hospital bill, there was a large, unmarked deposit that covered the cost of his surgery, his medications, everything.
No name. No note.
Just money that appeared at the exact time they needed it most. She tried to ask around, but no one knew where it had come from. She even called the hospital, but they couldn't help.
It was just there.
The same thing happened with her brother's treatments. Every time she thought they were at the end of their resources, more help came. It was like a ghost was watching over them, quietly picking up the pieces. But Michael never showed his face. Meanwhile, every passing day, Michael kept feeling the weight of his own loneliness in ways he hadn't known before. He had wanted to be loved for himself, just Michael, not the billionaire. But now, as the world buzzed with his name, he realized he was more alone than ever.
His heart ached for Anita. He wanted to tell her it wasn't a game, that it wasn't about playing tricks or testing her. It was about finding someone who saw him. Not his money, not his status, just him. But she had made her choice. And it wasn't him. He respected that.
Even if it hurts.
Even if it felt like the world was closing in. Days passed. Weeks.
Time moved on, but for both of them, everything had changed. Anita focused on her brother's recovery, putting her dreams aside for the moment. The pressures of life weighed heavily on her, but she carried on, stronger than before, even if her heart felt heavier. And Michael, from afar, continued to help in silence. He never once revealed himself to her. Not as the billionaire. Not as the cleaner. Just as someone who cared. A year had passed since everything had changed. Anita had worked hard to build a new life, finding strength in herself she never knew she had. She had focused on her work at the NGO, helping young people who were struggling to find jobs, just like she once did. Her brother was now healthy again, and though life wasn't perfect, it was much better. It was at a special NGO event that Anita saw him again. She was busy overseeing the event, making sure everything was running smoothly, when she noticed someone standing near the entrance. Her heart stopped for a moment. It was Michael. But he wasn't the same. He was dressed simply, not in the expensive suits he used to wear. He looked calm and genuine, and there was no sign of the billionaire personality that had once felt so far out of reach. "Anita," he said softly, his voice bringing back so many memories. She turned to face him, trying to stay composed. "Michael, what are you doing here?" She hadn't expected to see him again. The past still hurt, and seeing him stirred up feelings she had tried to bury. "I'm here to apologize," Michael said, his eyes filled with regret. "I was wrong to hide who I really was from you. I'm sorry for not trusting you with the truth." Anita listened quietly. She didn't know what to say at first. The emotions were so mixed up inside her. She had been angry, confused, and hurt by everything that had happened. But now, seeing him so different, so real, she didn't know how to feel. "Michael," she started, her voice soft but steady. "I've been angry at you for a long time. You lied to me. You pretended to be someone else. But I also know that it wasn't just about the money. You wanted someone to love you for who you truly are, not for your wealth." Michael nodded, grateful for her understanding. "I didn't want you to think I was just another rich guy. But I realize now that it wasn't the way to find real love. There was a long pause, and then Michael looked at her, his eyes sincere. Anita, I also want to thank you. I want to thank you for the kindness you showed me when I was just the cleaner.
You didn't judge me. You treated me like a person.
And more than that, I want to thank you for not rejecting my help when it came to your brother's surgery. I didn't want you to feel burdened, so I helped anonymously. It was the least I could do after everything. Anita felt a warm feeling spread through her. She hadn't known where the money had come from to pay for her brother's surgery, but now it all made sense. She smiled softly, her heart touched by his gesture.
Thank you, Michael, she said quietly.
I never knew it was you. I didn't ask, but I'm really grateful. It means more than you can imagine. Michael smiled back, his heart lighter than it had been in so long. I'm glad I could help. There was a moment of silence between them before Michael took a step closer. Anita, I've learned a lot over the past year. About love, about trust, and about being real with the people who matter. I don't expect anything from you, but I want to ask, would you be my girlfriend? I want to build a real relationship with you, one where I'm just Michael, not the billionaire. Anita blinked in surprise.
She hadn't expected this.
After everything, she hadn't known what she wanted or if she was ready to take such a big step again. But looking at Michael now, this real, genuine man, she could see the sincerity in his eyes. And in her heart, she knew the answer. Yes, Michael, she said, her voice full of warmth. I'd like that. Months passed, and their relationship grew stronger. They spent time together, building a connection that was deeper than anything they had experienced before. Michael showed Anita the world outside his wealth, and Anita showed him the beauty of living simply and with purpose. Their love wasn't about luxury or status, it was about understanding, kindness, and a shared desire to be better, together. Then, one beautiful evening, Michael took Anita to a quiet park. It was the same park they had walked through when they were just friends, before everything had changed. They sat on a bench, the setting sun casting a warm glow around them. Michael turned to Anita, holding a small box in his hand. Anita, he said, his voice filled with emotion, we've been through a lot together. And I know that we're not perfect, but I believe in what we have. I believe in us. Will you marry me? Anita's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. She had never imagined this moment when they had first met. The man she had once thought was just a cleaner, now asking her to be his partner for life. She smiled, her heart full of love and joy. Yes, Michael, she said, her voice trembling with happiness. Yes, I'll marry you. The wedding was everything they had dreamed of, simple, yet beautiful. It wasn't a grand ceremony with thousands of guests or expensive decorations. It was a celebration of love, of two people who had found each other against all odds. They exchanged vows surrounded by their closest family and friends, and as they kissed, the world seemed to disappear around them. From that day forward, Michael and Anita built a life together, not based on wealth or status, but on love, trust, and shared dreams. They proved that true love isn't about what you have, it's about who you are and how you treat the people who matter. And they lived happily ever after.
Thank you for watching Story Lovers. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notification bell so you can get notified whenever we drop new stories.